Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my May reading wrap-up. So once again, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. Before I get into talking about the books that I read in the month of May, I do want to talk about my absence on YouTube recently. If you may or may not have noticed, but the past month has been a lot for me. To start with, I was working on a reading vlog that ended up just descending into chaos, and at this point, I don't think it needs to see the light of day. It didn't really go how I wanted it to, as far as like what the theme was and whether or not I liked the books. Unfortunately, like some of the clips were really good, but some were just madness, and then I never really finished it well, so I just kind of dumped that. And then I did get some pretty life-altering news a couple weeks ago. With his permission, I've been told that I can say this on here. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. And so if you know anything about cancer, hopefully you don't, but if you do, those are two very rare types of cancer, and my dad will probably not be here for much longer, so it's been quite a month. And somehow I've still managed to read 14 books, but it's just been a lot going on. I've been spending a lot of time in Florida, where I am from, so I can be with my family, and I'm going back again in a couple weeks for my birthday, and my dad's birthday is the day before mine, so that will be nice to be there for that. But just, yeah, it's been a rough month, and I just haven't been able to make YouTube a priority, but at the end of the day, it does bring me happiness, and my dad loves watching my videos, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep going and keep making videos. So with that, let me get started on my May wrap-up. So you're gonna have to forgive me if I have forgotten a lot of these, because it's been a month. I've lived 1,000 lifetimes in this 1 month, so that's that. So like I said, I read 14 total books. I read 3 5 stars, 6 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 1 1 star. I never give books 1 star, but I'll explain more later. So the first book that I read was What's Eating Us by Cole Kasdan. I listened to the audiobook and I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. If you are recovering or want to recover from any kind of disordered eating and you're comfortable listening to that kind of content, this was really great. There was a lot of information, but it was also very much a memoir. I really enjoy these books as someone that's had some struggles with eating. I think many women have been through that same stuff too. So it was really, really insightful. It kind of covered some stuff that I don't know, have not really heard of. The author suffered from very severe anorexia and eventually bulimia. So I feel like a lot of the books I've read have been not from that perspective, have been more straightforward and more like fact-based versus her own experience. So I really did enjoy that, and I think that if you like nonfiction and if you're okay with that kind of stuff, because it definitely could be triggering to some, is definitely a good one to check out. The next book I read was Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton. I really enjoyed this. It was kind of a twist on Strangers on a Train from like Alfred Hitchcock. One of them is a rich white woman, and the other is a middle-class black woman. They end up meeting because the black woman, Tasha, is leaving a hotel where she had gone to like escape her abusive husband, and I can't remember why she was leaving the hotel. Oh, to go after her son. It was a whole thing. But Maddie, the white woman, was leaving like a gala with her husband, and she like ran from him and banged on Tasha's car window and was like, "You have to let me in, he's abusive." And she said, "Let's strike up this deal where like I'll kill your husband and you kill my husband." But Tasha was like not into that. So it goes from there. I thought this was really good. It was definitely holding my attention. I was a little bit annoyed by like one of the characters. I don't want to say which main character, but I did think this was a pretty interesting thriller, and I love kind of like where there's like a spin on something you already know. So like I know the movie Strangers on a Train. So I don't know. I thought it was really fun. There were like dual timelines, which I always like, kind of flashbacks and forwards. And yeah, the villain in this, no spoilers, is like just the perfect kind of villain. And I had fun reading this. It was a 4-star book for me. The next book that I read was A Good Family by Matt Goldman, which I gave 4 stars to. This is like sort of a thriller, but I think it like leaned more towards just like a domestic drama. I don't know. The end did have like thrillery elements, I guess, but honestly, I don't know. While I gave this 4 stars, it like did not have any effect on me because my head's been all over the place this month, like I said. So I can't remember exactly what all happens and exactly how I felt reading this. But I did not take any notes on it. I did not write a review. So honestly, I can't give too much insight here. I know that I did like it and it held my attention. If I recall correctly, the ending felt kind of just like eye roll inducing. It was just like, really? So do with that what you will. I'm sorry I can't give a better review on this one. The next book I read was The New Mother by Nora Murphy, which I gave 2 stars to. So this one was actually one that I read in the reading vlog that is no more. And I had a lot of strong opinions. I still have a lot of strong opinions. Mainly that this book was just so frustrating. So it's about a woman who has just given birth and she's staying home with the baby, but she doesn't really feel, I don't want to say she doesn't feel bonded to the baby, but she does. But like she feels like just sucked dry, literally and figuratively, by being a mother. And she basically won't let her husband help her. She's like, he just wants me. I can't remember anything about the baby. But she's like, yeah, the baby only wants to be with me. And her husband's like, please let me help you. Like, we could hire a night nurse. Like, you have to sleep, because she never sleeps. But her neighbor wants to help her because he's got a daughter and like he understands. So he comes over during the day. He's a stay-at-home dad. And it's literally 300 pages of this woman refusing to accept help from people that can actually help her, like her husband and her friends, being weird about this neighbor and complaining about how much her boobs hurt and how much she's tired. It was awful. It was so just like draining. And I'm not trying to discount what mothers go through and how I'm sure it feels so isolating. And again, don't know about that personally, but I certainly am not trying to like make it seem like that's not as bad as it can definitely be. But I don't need to read about it for a 350-page book. You know what I mean? And the ending felt like, oh shoot, we marketed this book as a thriller. I guess we should throw something thrilling in here. It was not for me. And yeah, 2 stars. The next book that I read was The Half Moon by Mary Beth Keane. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's really just a family drama, very, very character driven. And it's about a couple who owns this bar, and are they staying together? Are they separate? He's like the head bartender. The bar has been there forever. They have locals, and they have this big snowstorm, and it's kind of just like what's going on with them and the town in this big snowstorm. And again, like, it's not a very good description because that's really, really character heavy and not super plot driven. There is a pretty big focus on their decision whether or not to have children. So if you are triggered by like infertility, don't read this. It will not do you well. I've really liked it. I thought it was really, really good. I listened to the audiobook. I thought it was really, really well done. I loved the narrators. And if you just want to kind of get lost in like someone else's world, this is a good one to pick up because I read this prior to all of my stuff happening, but it was really good to just kind of escape. Really good for one of those. And if you liked character-driven books, this is a good one for you. The next book I read was Symphony of Secrets by Brendan Slocum, which was a very enthusiastic 5 stars. So this is the author of The Violent Conspiracy, which was, in addition to being one of my all-time favorite thrillers, was one of my favorite books total last year. I think it was last year. Might have been the year before. Nevertheless, it's such a brilliantly crafted piece of fiction, and this one I think I might have even liked better. This one's kind of a lot to explain plot-wise, and I kind of think it would be best to go in blind, but I'm going to give a little bit of background. So this man is a professor at the University of Virginia, and he is like a world-renowned expert at a composer named Frederick Delaney's music and like everything about him. So he gets a call from the head of this Delaney Foundation, which basically, is this composer's foundation. He's long dead, but they found this piece of music that they thought was lost forever, and they want him to come and like authenticate it and like whatever musicians and composers do. But in that process, he finds out some things about his hero, Frederick Delaney, that he didn't know before, and it goes from there. There's a lot about racism, classism, sexism, all of this kind of stuff, which I think was really well done in The Violent Conspiracy, and it's almost like even done better here. And it's written in dual timelines. I loved it. I loved that part of it too. I would have read a whole book on like either just one or the other, honestly. It was just perfection. I flew through this. It's like 450 pages, but it did not matter at all. I read this so fast. The ending was perfect. I don't think I've ever been so satisfied and just blown away by an ending. It was absolute perfection. Brendan Slocum does such a good job of like blending his passion for music with his passion for writing. I thought this book was brilliant, and definitely read this and then also go read The Violent Conspiracy because they're both amazing. The next book I read was Search History by Amy Taylor. So this is following a woman who meets this guy and basically through Instagram becomes obsessed with his dead ex-girlfriend, and she like kind of infiltrates into like all of her name was Emily, the dead ex-girlfriend, and she's like trying to be friends with like Emily's friends without them knowing who she is. She like goes and meets her brother. So it's like very weird stuff, and like none of this the boyfriend knows, and he like refuses to talk about her. And so it's just kind of creepy. I thought it was entertaining. It was set in Australia, which I haven't read too many books set in Australia, so I did enjoy that. The main character is Anna, and she was just kind of a frustrating character because she's like standing in her own way constantly. The plot was kind of repetitive. I did think that the ending, however, was perfect. Absolutely just the way I wanted it to end. So if you're reading this, keep going because the ending will make it all worth it. I definitely don't think I'm the right audience for this because I've been married for 10 years. I've been with my husband for 12. So the whole concept of like dating online and meeting someone and then like scouring their Instagram is like completely lost on me because that was just not my experience the last time I was single. We had Facebook and that was pretty much it. So I didn't have this experience. And so I think that for someone who is used to this can kind of like relate to maybe feeling like they have to compare themselves to their partner's exes and having that information so like readily available, it would probably hit a little different for them. I did enjoy the book overall though, and just because this was not like spot on perfect for me, I would still pick up another book by this author. So here comes my 1 star. It is called Social Engagement by Avery Carpenter Forey. Oh, where to begin? I had both the physical copy and the audiobook, and I had so much trouble getting through this. It's not even that long. It starts with a woman on the night of her wedding, and she is already like her marriage has basically already failed at 6 hours of marriage. And so she's kind of in flashbacks showing us how she got to this place, and a lot of it is to do with Instagram. Another Instagram book. I don't know. That sounds like it would be right up my alley. It sounds so good, but it was not. Literally, not one single character was likable. They were all annoying. They were a lot of rich white people, very ignorant of their privilege, I guess I should say. It had a super abrupt ending, which I don't like. It also had an absolutely insane amount of fat shaming. And the main character does have an eating disorder. And so generally, a lot of the fat shaming is towards herself. However, I did find it pretty triggering and upsetting to listen to her say awful things about her weight and how she sees herself. Just, it was not good. And additionally, there's like graphic descriptions of her making herself throw up, and it was just not for me. I just didn't like this. I wish I had just not finished it, honestly. But I like can't even tell you how few times I've given something 1 star, but here we are. The next one I read is a brand new release I was so excited for, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I gave this 5 stars easily. So this came at a kind of a weird time for me because I was in the middle of reading this when I got the news about my dad, and so reading about a death was hard. Let me start by giving you the plot instead of this. So it's about these 2 women who were in college together, and they're both authors, and there's a lot of competition there. And one of them has had so much success, and she's got lots of money and all of this, and the other has done They sometimes get together. The one that's very successful has her over, and she ends up choking to death on a piece of sushi or something. I don't know if it's sushi. And before that, she had shown the other girl, whose name I don't remember, her manuscript for her next novel that she hadn't shown to anyone. Her mother, her publisher, her editor, her agent, like no one knows about this. So the other girl kind of decides she's going to rewrite parts and go through it because it's just a first draft, and make it her own, and then ends up publishing it on her own. Side note, that's important. The girl who was very successful, who dies, was Asian. The other girl is white. So it kind of gets into a lot of like Yellowface, like the title of the book, and how that kind of goes, and like, is she going to get found out? I thought this was brilliantly done. It kept my attention so well through a really difficult week. I can't say enough how much I appreciated that escapism. This was so well written, so interesting, such a unique plot, and a really good social commentary, and definitely satirical. It was great. This has been all over the place, so I'm sure this is not the first person you've seen review it, but definitely a must read. The next one I read was Stone Cold Fox by Rachel Collar Croft. This was for my book club. I did give it 4 stars, but it was more like a 3.5, I think. I did like this. It's about a woman who is trying to like, I don't want to say scam this man into marrying her, but she's trying to get ahead by being hot and kind of making this like rich guy want to marry her. It's like definitely a like a scammer book, which we know I love, and it was good. It's definitely not something that I will remember forever because I've already kind of forgotten most of it. But I did like the reading experience, and I thought it was well written, and I just don't have that much to say about it. It was a good book, and I had a good time reading it, but that's about it. The next one I read is The Hole by Hiroko Oyamada. This was very short, so it must have been like some kind of novella or, I don't know, short story. It was like 100 pages. It's translated from Japanese, and it's about this woman and her husband. Her husband gets a new job, so they move out to the sticks, basically, for his new job, and they're moving into like the guest house of his parents. So the main character's in-laws. And just like weird stuff starts happening, and I gotta be honest, a lot of this, I don't know what happened. There was definitely some sort of like motifs of like falling down a rabbit hole and like Alice in Wonderland type stuff. But personally, I don't think I got it. I gave it 3 stars because I was entertained and like it was a pleasant enough reading experience. However, I feel like stuff went over my head and I just like was not sure exactly what was happening. But I don't know. You could probably skip this one, but overall, it wasn't like it was something I really didn't like or a complete waste of my time. The next book I read was The Time Has Come by Will Leach. This was so good. I gave this 5 stars. Really good piece of escapism. I don't even know how to explain this, honestly. It is such a strange plot, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of following 6 different characters and how their lives intersect at this one moment. I love a character-driven story, contemporary, literary fiction, and this was perfect. This is the author of How Lucky, which came out I think 2 years ago. That was such a big hit. It was a book of the month pick. And this one is just as good as that, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. There is kind of a slow burn mystery going on in the background, but at the end of the day, I felt this book was really just about the goodness of people. And like, we see a lot of bad stuff that people do, but there's like a lot of good there too, and we don't recognize it enough, really. There's a lot of pandemic and 2020 election stuff, so if that is something you don't want to read about, then this is not for you. But I thought this book was great. It had a really interesting story while like developing characters that you like didn't want to stop reading about. And while there are a lot of characters, it's pretty easy to keep them all straight because they're all very different and written very differently. Overall, this was just fantastic. The next one I read is Cutting Teeth by Chandler Baker. This doesn't come out until July, but it was great. 4 stars for this one. If you have liked her previous books, The Whisper Network and The Husbands, then you'll definitely like this. This is sort of like a thriller that's just got some like weird elements. Basically, it's about these children who start drinking blood. They are 4 years old, and in preschool they start biting like each other, and then they each kind of start taking it home and biting their parents. It's really interesting, the commentary and like what the blood sucking metaphor is, I guess, which is just like how much children take out of their parents and how much parents are expected to do for their children, even when it's ridiculous, like giving them your blood to drink. And so I just thought that was super well done. Again, like, not a mother, but I have so much respect for this kind of commentary and really kind of like shining a light on how much mothers can be kind of exploited almost. It's definitely got that same kind of vibe from The Husbands, if you read that, about women who end up taking on so much just because they're women, and they can still be trying to have careers and work full-time jobs, but like men who do that and also take care of the kids are like heroes, whereas women are never really lauded for that. That's kind of like the theme, but there's also like a murder mystery going on, and that's kind of where the like thrilling element comes in. My only gripe with this was a little bit of the pacing. So the first 70% is a lot of talking about the blood sucking and the kids and how much this is taking out of these moms. And then it feels like kind of like the last 30% we just like threw in, like the murder happens early, but it's not until the end of the book that it becomes like central. And so it just felt a little bit rushed, but this was a great read. If you liked her previous books, you'll like this. And it really was a really great comparison to how mothers are treated in real life. You made it to the last book I finished, The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I gave this 3 stars. It was not what I was expecting. This was a book of the month pick, and this follows a woman who is house sitting for this other woman she's never met up in like on the coast of Washington State, and she's just been kind of like reading all of these horror books on her Kindle because she's got nothing else to do, and she's just house sitting, and she's kind of like escaping a tragedy of her own. She ends up writing a review for this book and giving it 1 star, and almost immediately gets an email from the author being like, hey, this is my livelihood, can you take this down? and they kind of go back and forth a minute, and then basically he comes after her. So first of all, I have to tell this little tidbit. So when I was like halfway through this book, I woke up and I got an email from Goodreads saying that I had a review taken down because it said that I had like read the book twice, and so my rating was bringing down the average rating. And I definitely didn't. I've only read it the one time, but whatever. They took it down. That's fine. They also were like, you didn't say that you got this book for free or whatever. And I was like, who is reading my reviews this closely? Jeez. But they deleted it, and that's fine. I reposted it with the FTC disclaimer that I should have had to begin with, and then I went back and added it to all of the ones that I had gotten for free, so I've saved there. But I was like, this is such weird timing, because is this like the author coming after me, like unhappy with my negative review? The book was She Started It by Sean Gilbert, if I didn't say that, which if you remember, I ripped apart and hated. And the day after that happened, it was picked for a June book of the month. So I'm like, maybe someone was like looking at reviews to make sure there wasn't like negative stuff like at the top. Well, joke's on them, because now it's really at the top, seeing as I had to delete it and repost it, but it's fine. It's fine. It was just really funny timing. So basically, this book kind of went another direction. I really thought this would have been better with more tension building up. It was very action-packed. This author wrote, what is that book called? No Exit, which I read a few years ago. I liked it, but it was very, very much like an action movie. Like that's how it reads, versus like a thriller where you're kind of like unraveling a mystery a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. I just think that that's not the kind of thriller that I prefer. So it was a lot of like action sequences that I feel like my eyes were glazing over, because I was just like, I don't care, get to the next thing, give me some mystery. The ending also was, I don't want to say it was predictable, because it's like the manner of what happened was not predictable, but the ultimate, like who's good, who's bad, all of that was predictable. So just, overall, this was pretty average for me, but I do think that if you like those kind of action-packed thrillers, then you'll probably like this one better than I did. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this and hanging in there with me through these ups and downs. This is just, I don't know how consistent I'm going to be able to be on YouTube. Like I said, I want to, because I know my dad loves watching these videos, and so I'd love to be able to do that for him while I can, and we're just going to see how it goes. So I appreciate you watching this video and choosing to click on it and listening to me talk about my life. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would subscribe. And other than that, I will see you in the next one.